gather around for Jeannie's show. It's the Aleut, the Indian and the Eskimo. It's the Aleut, the Indian and the Eskimo.
Hello and welcome to Heartbeat Alaska Native News and Information. I'm Jeannie Green. Thank you so much for joining us. Today we begin a series on Yakutat, Alaska, the northernmost Tlingit village in Alaska. We visit with a gentleman there named David Beattie, a resident of Yakutat, and we visit many other people there too. What makes David Beattie special, though, is the fact that he has trained his children in home fire drills. We flew to Yakutat and we documented his training, added a few graphics to share this training with the state of Alaska. This video will also be made available, and we'll tell you how at the end of the show. Travel with me now to Yakutat, Alaska. If you're a visitor there, the first thing that strikes you is the beauty of the village. But there's so much more than the eye can see, and that's the very rich and interesting history. For instance, did you know that the world's only fish train was once in Yakutat, Alaska? Yes, a train that did nothing but haul fish. It is home to the glaciers. It is home to the brown bear. It is home to the otter. It is home to the eagle and to the raven. It is a paradise that has always been home to the Tlingit people of Yakutat. Yakutat means the place where the canoes rest. And if you were a canoe, there's no other place you would want to be. The majestic beauty of this isolated area leaves no question why the people who settled here centuries ago chose to do so.
I like to live here, and just being here all my life and eating subsistence foods such as fish, seal, deer. I don't know, it's a real awesome place to live in. And when it's sunny, it's like paradise because we have a sandy beach that has a good 90 miles of sand and waves. So I don't know, it's a nice place to live.
It's beautiful here. The people are friendly. I run into a lot of people that come in from out of town and are here for a month or so, and they always make comments about how nice the people are here. And it's true. The people are nice here. It's beautiful.
While the distant mountains provide an escape for the gaze of a daydreamer, the rich land and waters provide a life for the Tlingit people who continue to respect and honor the land they call home.
We always work subsistent according to its season, but we never did kill an animal just for the sake of killing or taking his life away from them. This is the way you were taught. And all of the legends and the stories that were told always refer to this, that you respect. Everything in our world has a spirit. The little birds, bees, stuff in a fish, they have a spirit. And you have to treat the spirit right if you obtain it for your subsistence, but each in its own season.
It's this kind of respect that allowed the Tlingit people of Yakutat to coexist with nature and with each other. In the surrounding area live several different clans, each sharing their land with the other, taking care of each other, respecting one another.
Most of our land runs from what we call Cape Suckling, above Cape Suckling down to Lituya Bay. It covers about 263 miles the last time I measured it. But there's 5 clans in there, which are the landowner clans, and each tribe had their own boundary line. And so you didn't go into just somebody else's boundary line until you were invited. And then that, they used to make kind of a deal where you hunted my land and I'll hunt in your land all along the coast.
But this respect would not be returned by the uninvited squatters who would push their way into the area, taking from the Tlingits their livelihood. In the late 1700s, Russian fur traders would discover the sea otter-rich waters of Yakutat Bay, and in 1805, the Russian-American Company would establish a fort here, staking claim to the sea otters of the region. Because the Russians would not allow local Tlingits access to their fisheries, a Tlingit war party attacked and destroyed the fort. Throughout the ensuing years, the Tlingit people would learn the meaning of change. In 1904, a sawmill was built, which produced enough lumber to construct a wharf and cannery on Yakutat's Monty Bay, and enough railroad ties to lay 10 miles of 40-pound rail from Yakutat to the Situk River. For the next 60 years, fish would be hauled from the Situk River to the cannery in Yakutat via the Yakutat and Southern Railroad, the world's only train devoted to hauling raw fish. The fish train, as it became fondly known as, would transport fishermen and workers to the Situk River on a daily basis, and ran on a truly unique schedule that was dependent upon the tides, because the fishing boats could only unload their fish at high tide. When the train arrived at Situk River, the fish were unloaded from the boats and dumped into the gondola cars by a conveyor belt. Since the railroad was designed for the sole purpose of hauling fish, the train only operated during fishing season. But in 1940, the train would serve a different purpose, one that would once again change the face of Yakutat. In 1940, the U.S. Army would find another use for the short-track train. With the threat of a Japanese invasion, the U.S. Army decided to build an airfield and garrison 4 miles southeast of Yakutat. But with no roadway, the Army had no means to transport construction materials to the site. With the aid of the Yakutat and Southern Railroad, Army engineers and materials were hauled by train to the site until 6 months later, when a highway was completed connecting Yakutat to the airfield.
I was just a little kid when the Army and Navy came here, and I must have been about 6 or 7 years old. I remember it was the first time that I ever tasted French toast or cereal, Cheerios, and I'd never tasted that before. They were introduced to it at the school. And so things were really changing at a faster pace from the time the Army was here during World War II.
Today, the Yakutat and Southern Railroad serves as a reminder of the changes that this area has seen, put on display so that all who visit this Southeast community have the opportunity to see this truly unique token from the past. As for the military, well, the military is long gone, but the legacy they have left behind will never be forgotten.
Along with all the good that's come from the military, you have the bad on the other hand, which is Yakutat has an extremely high rate of cancer. In my family alone, my grandfather, my aunt, 2 other aunts have died of cancer. I have an aunt that's surviving now, that she's been living with cancer. But, you know, the military might have, at the time, they might have come in here thinking they're going to save us from any invasion of the Japanese, but not knowing the risks of PCBs and things, they've actually done more damage than they have good. The chemicals and stuff that spilled into the ground, you know, like alongside these roads that we drive on, you see the water. That's pretty much the water table, and the majority of all the foods that we eat here are from the land. So any toxins that leak into the water are absorbed by the animals.
In fact, because of known chemical dump sites and chemical leakage, some beaches and access roads are closed to subsistence users. The saying, "freedom is not free," holds true for both soldiers and civilians in this case. It's something that the people of Yakutat are coping with as they continue to live life the way they were taught, respecting the land and taking from it only what they need. It's this adherence to the old ways that define these people and assure that the Tlingit way of life will carry on into the future.
I'm really proud to say I'm, you know, Yakutat, you know, because the Tlingit people in this area has a lot of pride in the culture, and even though all that we have lost, you know, due to, you know, just to Western civilization, you know, to fit into the ways, and we just have to stand our ground, and we have to take advantage of what's in front of us, because if we don't, it's like gone like that.
It takes strength to go through hard times. It takes dedication to your culture, to your neighbors, to your friends. And we want to show a video now. A video edited together, inspired by one man in Yakutat, and that's Mr. David Beattie. Here it is. Take notes, would you? This could save lives.
I was inside the house and I thought I'd smelled some smoke, but I thought it was maybe a firewood or something, and I went to the back window and it was just all orange. I came out of the house and went over to the window over here.
He ran over the only entrance to the home is in this corner here.
That was all, half of the whole place was on fire.
And Paul ran over and knocked the window out on this side to wake up the people.
My sister woke me up and said, "Roy, the house is on fire." And I immediately got up. The fire was coming from, it seemed like outside into that corner.
There's an oil drip stove with a carburetor on it. This is where the fire started.
Coming towards the door at us. When we couldn't, I looked out, I was the first one to the door, and I couldn't get out the door because there was already flames coming at us, and it was covering the door. So I told him to come out the window.
Before we grabbed the garden hose, the people next door here had jumped out the window.
And they both got out, and I don't know what was going on. I was trying to get out, and it just happened so fast. Seemed like a few minutes, the whole place is all gone.
Just completely gutted everything. The three people that were in there were saved by Paul, who lives in this house next to it here. And if it wasn't for him, I think those three people would have perished in the fire.
Sadly, around 20 Alaskans do die each year in house fires. The vast majority of these deaths are in small communities like Yakutat. This is Dave Beattie. He lives here in Yakutat, Alaska with his 3 kids.
This one's the black seaweed. This is Reuben seaweed. I think we eat it.
As you can see, Dave loves to teach his kids all about the subsistence foods around Yakutat. He works hard to be a good father. But a few years ago, Dave realized he'd forgotten to teach them something very important.
The way I looked at it back then is that, nobody from the fire department's going to come to my house and teach my kids how to properly evacuate the home in case of a fire. Nobody from the city or borough government. That's my responsibility as a parent. And so in order to make sure that I can protect my kids, I worked to ensure that they know how to get out of the house.
So Dave decided to do something about it.
I'll take a smoke detector and I'll set off the smoke detector when they're unaware of it, and then they automatically know that they have to go through either a drill or something's happening, so I can keep it as realistic as possible. And so as soon as I do that, they know to get off their bed, to crawl to the door.
I crawled to the door, felt it.
Cold door.
Cold, and I opened the door and there was no smoke, and I went out the front door.
After this drill, Dave tries another scenario.
We climbed out of bed and went to the door and put our backside of our hand on the door to see if it was cold or not.
Cold door.
And then if it is cold, then you can check.
Smoke.
And then if there's smoke, then you have to close the door quickly and climb out of the window.
It's easy to see that Dave's kids have practiced. They know when the alarm sounds to crawl to the door and feel it with the back of their hand. A cold door and no smoke means they should go out the front door. A hot door or smoke tells them to head out the window.
The scariest part is people don't think it can happen to them.
Jodie Hettrick works for the Alaska State Fire Marshal's office. Her office investigates fire deaths all across the state.
And we've seen it happen so many times around the state where people probably did have the time to get out, but they got lost in their own house because of the smoke and the confusion, or they were scared and weren't sure exactly when to leave, or when it came time to leave, they didn't know the best way to get out.
Both Jodie and Dave know how easily these deaths could be prevented.
First, make sure your smoke alarms work so that you're alerted if there is a fire. Second, walk through your house, check for obstacles, and sit down with your whole family, draw a floor plan of the house, and figure out what are the best ways out. You need to identify 2 exits out of every room, and once you've done that, then have a practice walk-through fire drill to where you pretend the smoke alarm goes off and have everybody be in the rooms they normally spend the most time in and have them walk through the fire drill to see if they can get out.
When Dave and his kids walked through their fire drill, they found a problem. The boys couldn't safely get out the bedroom window.
They have a little step that was placed up there just for that. Once the boys go out, they know in an order that the oldest goes out first and waits on the step and helps his younger brother out. And then their job is to go around the corner and help their sister out her window. As children are smaller, you got to learn to place furniture in the bedroom so that the child will be able to climb up, so they do have access to the window latches and to open the window knobs. I've seen nightstands and dressers placed in front of the knobs in the windows, and I've spoken to a few of the parents and told them that you're blocking your exit.
Once the kids are out, they go to their safe meeting place, the telephone pole by their neighbors. There they can make sure everyone is out. And if someone is missing, they can tell the firefighters exactly which room to search.
That our mom's in there, and she's at the back door at the last living room in the back room.
So let's review. First, check your smoke detectors. Second, find 2 exits for every room. Third, practice your plan twice a year to find any hidden problems. And when the smoke detector goes off, do like Dave's kids. Crawl to the door and feel it with the back of your hand. If it's cold and there is no smoke, then go out. If the door is hot or there is smoke, close the door quickly and use the second exit. Once at your meeting place, choose one person to call the local emergency number and never go back into the fire. Just one breath of smoke from a house fire can kill.
Well, hydrogen cyanide gas is given off as in the smoke when furnishings inside a house burn. Another gas is carbon monoxide, which you hear about killing people quite often. And it also can affect how you think. So if you're affected by carbon monoxide because you try to go through that smoke, you can get lost and disoriented in your own house and not be able to find the way out.
Within hours of the fire in Yakutat, the community was already pulling together to help the 2 families any way they could. That's just what Alaskans do. Even as he watched the smoldering remains of the fire, Roy Shodda knew what was really important.
Lost everything. It's our lives that came out of it.
I was back there about the end of that car.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us for another Heartbeat Alaska. Thank you, David Beattie. Thank you, Melinda Lekanoff-Baker. Thank you, everyone that made this story possible. May I remind you, this is just the first of a series of programs on Yakutat, Alaska. There will be coming up next week, This Generation. And for those of you who aren't familiar with it, This Generation is a story about Native youth, actually a weekly program featuring stories on Native youth, about Native youth. And we will be taking a visit to Yakutat, Alaska, and their fabulous, fabulous youth in that wonderful village. God bless every single one of you. Join me again, won't you, for more Southeast Alaska next week.
To purchase a VHS copy of this program, have your credit card number ready and call area code 907-563-7440 or mail $20 check or money order to Jeannie Green Productions, 6216 Old Seward Highway, Anchorage, Alaska 99518. Ask for the program number listed below.